Thibaut Courtois sat on the emerald turf of Los Angeles, his head buried in his gloves, while the roar of the Spanish contingent echoed off the canopy of the stadium. It was the posture of a man who knew the script had already been written, a giant of the game, reduced to a spectator in his own tragedy. In that moment, the scoreboard read 1-1, but the air felt heavy with the scent of an impending, orchestrated collapse. Belgium had done the impossible by breaching the most formidable defense in modern international football, yet the celebration felt hollow. There was a phantom presence on the pitch, a sense that no matter how well the Belgians played, the machinery of the tournament was already grinding them into the dust. We are told that football is a game of merit, but what we witnessed in this quarterfinal felt more like a clinical extraction. By the time the final whistle blew, a nation was in mourning. A teenager was being crowned without a kingdom, and the governing body of world football was once again retreating into the shadows of its own making. The question isn't just whether Belgium was robbed. The question is whether we are still watching a sport or a carefully managed broadcast product. To understand the sheer weight of the controversy, you have to look at the statistical mountain Belgium was trying to climb. Spain arrived in California not just as a team, but as a mathematical inevitability. They were riding a 36-match unbeaten streak, hovering just one game shy of the all-time record held by Italy. This is a team that breathes possession and exhales control. Under Luis de la Fuente, they have evolved from the sideways passing of the previous era into a more vertical, predatory machine. They held 68% of the ball. They dictated the tempo with a rhythm that felt like a heartbeat. On the half-hour mark, that dominance manifested in the simplest of ways. De la Fuente had made the controversial decision to bench Pedri, the golden boy of Barcelona, in favor of Fabian Ruiz. It was a move that many questioned, but Ruiz silenced the critics within seconds. When Dani Olmo's stinging drive was only parried by Courtois, Ruiz was there, ghosting past a static Belgian defense to stab the ball home. The celebration was a window into the human side of the machine. Ruiz wanted the ball to tuck under his shirt, a tribute to his soon-to-be-born first child, but Mikel Oyarzabal had already launched it into the third tier of the stands in a fit of adrenaline. Ruiz had to fetch a replacement ball from behind the goal, a small, endearing delay in what otherwise looked like a routine execution. But there is a specific kind of rot hidden within Spain's beauty. For all their hoarding of the ball, they are strangely allergic to the back of the net. They have managed a mere 11 goals in 6 matches. On paper, that seems respectable, but 4 of those 6 games saw them score 2 goals or fewer. They are a team that constructs a magnificent cathedral, only to realize they've forgotten to install the front door. They dominate territory, they exhaust opponents, and then they struggle to provide the final killing blow. This toothlessness is what allowed Belgium a foothold they arguably didn't deserve. In the 65th minute, Kevin De Bruyne, playing on what looked like sheer willpower, threaded a pass that bypassed the entire Spanish midfield. Charles de Ketelaere, the man tasked with leading a front line missing its most potent weapons, rose above the Spanish center-backs and powered a header past Unai Simon. The stadium fell silent for a heartbeat. This was the first goal Spain had conceded in the entire tournament. They had gone 650 minutes without their net rippling, a record-breaking streak that had seen them shut out Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, Uruguay, Austria, and Portugal. The streak was over. The invincibility was cracked. Belgium's journey to this moment was already a miracle of sports medicine and desperation. They arrived at the quarterfinal as a walking infirmary. They had already lost the physical presence of Amadou Onana to a catastrophic knee injury during their demolition of the United States. Then, in a moment of pure cruelty, Youri Tielemans felt his hamstring snap during the warm-up, less than an hour before the opening whistle. Belgium took the pitch having lost 2/3 of their engine room before a ball was even kicked. But the tournament wasn't done taking from them. The most devastating blow came in the 71st minute. Thibaut Courtois, a man widely considered one of the 3 best goalkeepers on the planet, pulled up clutching his thigh. He tried to stay. He tried to breathe through the pain. But after the hydration break, he realized he couldn't push off his left leg. He walked off in tears, wiping his eyes with his jersey, knowing that his exit was the signal for the vultures to descend. In his place came Sene Lammens, the young Manchester United backup, with a handful of first-team appearances to his name. The stage was too big, the lights were too bright. In the 88th minute, the inevitable occurred. Pau Cubarsí, a defender with license to roam, took a speculative shot from distance. It was a routine save, the kind of effort a goalkeeper of Courtois' caliber would handle while reading a book. Lammens moved toward it, but his hands seemed made of smoke. He spilled the ball directly into the path of Mikel Merino. Merino, who had only been on the pitch for a matter of minutes, didn't miss. 2-1. Just like that, the Belgian dream evaporated. This has become the defining characteristic of this Spanish side. They don't win because of their starting 11. They win because of their depth. Merino had done the exact same thing in the previous round against Portugal. This is a team that wins through attrition, waiting for the opponent to bleed out or for a young replacement to buckle under the pressure. Alexi Lalas noted with a certain grim satisfaction that the soccer gods had intervened, removing a world-class goalkeeper only to replace him with the vessel of Spain's victory. Spain didn't earn that win through a moment of tactical genius. They were gifted it by a boy who wasn't ready. This leads us to the most uncomfortable narrative of the tournament. The curious case of Lamine Yamal. We are living in the era of the individual. At this World Cup, the icons are supposed to carry their nations. Kylian Mbappe is hunting down Lionel Messi's all-time scoring records. Messi himself dragged Egypt through a miracle comeback. Erling Haaland dismantled Brazil. Harry Kane is scoring at will. And then there is Yamal. The 18-year-old is touted as the greatest talent of his generation, the crown jewel of the Spanish system. Yet, his statistical output is a desert. He has scored exactly 1 goal in this tournament, a consolation strike in a 4-0 rout of Saudi Arabia back in June. Since then, he has produced 0 goals and 0 assists in 4 matches. Against Belgium, he missed 4 of his 6 shots. His expected goals for the entire tournament sit at a meager 1.54. He is the only undisputed superstar in the world who is failing to deliver on the biggest stage. Yet, mysteriously, Yamal was awarded the Man of the Match trophy against Belgium. It was a decision that bordered on the absurd. It suggested that the award is no longer based on what happens on the grass, but on whose face is on the posters. Lalas was blunt, stating that Yamal was once again stymied and has yet to produce a single breakout performance. There is a reason for this, of course. Yamal tore his hamstring in April and has been playing on a knife's edge ever since. He isn't sharp. He isn't the player who tore the Euros apart at 16. When asked about his lack of production, Yamal was dismissive. He argued that if Spain wins the trophy, no one will care about his individual stats. He is technically correct, but his lack of impact creates a vacuum that Spain is currently filling with luck and substitute goals. Against a team like France, that luck will eventually run out. The boiling point, however, was not a missed goal or a fumbled save. It was a moment of officiating that has convinced an entire continent that the scales are weighted. Midway through the match, a ball struck Rodri's arm inside the Spanish penalty area. The contact was clear. The Belgian players swarmed Michael Oliver, screaming for a penalty that would have changed the trajectory of the game. Oliver waved it away. The VAR booth, staffed by officials who have been under intense scrutiny all summer, spent less than a minute reviewing the footage before confirming the on-field decision. No penalty. To a neutral observer, the decision is actually defensible. The ball ricocheted off a Spanish teammate at point-blank range, giving Rodri less than a second to react. According to the current FIFA and UEFA guidance, a player should not be penalized for a handball if the ball comes off their own body or a teammate in such close proximity that movement is impossible. By the letter of the law, Michael Oliver was right. But the law does not exist in a vacuum. This decision was dropped into a tournament that has been marinated in suspicion since the opening day. This is the World Cup where the President of the United States reportedly made a phone call to FIFA to get a red card suspension overturned. This is the tournament where Egypt filed a formal, scathing complaint, accusing officials of handing matches to Argentina. This is the same week where FIFA, in a move of staggering tone deafness, appointed an all-Argentine refereeing crew to a quarter-final match involving a team that could potentially face Argentina. There are ongoing FBI investigations into the finances of the defending Champions Federation. When you operate within a culture of perceived corruption, you lose the right to be believed. Even when the officials make the technically correct call, the public no longer sees an honest mistake or a nuanced application of the rules. They see a fix. They see the big team getting the benefit of the doubt while the smaller story is ushered toward the exit. This wasn't a series of isolated mistakes. It was exactly how the system was designed to work. FIFA has spent decades prioritizing the commercial viability of its matchups over the integrity of its officiating. A semifinal featuring Spain and France in Dallas is worth hundreds of millions more in broadcast rights and sponsorship activations than a semifinal featuring Belgium and France. When the institutional authority of a governing body is compromised, every 50-50 call becomes a smoking gun. Belgium's fans don't care about the ricochet rule. They care that their golden generation is dying on a hill of suspicious whistles and unpunished handballs. They see a pattern of the powerful being protected, while the vulnerable are discarded. Whether or not Rodri's handball was a penalty is almost irrelevant now. The real tragedy is that the sport's governing body has made it impossible for us to trust the answer. Spain now moves on to Dallas, to face France on Bastille Day. It is a heavyweight clash that feels like a final played a week too early. France is a terrifying prospect, a machine that has won all 6 of its matches, while outscoring its opponents by 14 goals. Kylian Mbappé is 1 goal away from equaling Lionel Messi's World Cup record of 21. The French front line of Mbappé, Dembélé, Olise, and Doué looks like it was designed in a laboratory to exploit slow defenses. They are the ultimate test for a Spanish team that hoards the ball but forgets to shoot. Lamine Yamal, despite his quiet summer, remains defiant. He claims that France cannot be better than Spain because Spain has a history of beating them. It is the kind of bravado that either precedes a legendary performance or a humiliating exit. On Tuesday, we will find out if Yamal is a wounded king or a marketing myth. Belgium, meanwhile, returns home to a country that feels cheated. They didn't lose because they were outplayed. They lost because their bodies betrayed them, and because a single moment of human error from a young goalkeeper was exploited by a team that knows how to wait. But more than that, they leave with the bitter taste of the Rodri decision. They are a nation convinced that the game was tilted. They saw a handball, they saw a silent VAR booth, and they saw a path to the final being cleared for the more profitable contestant. This is the legacy of the current FIFA administration. They have turned the world's most beautiful game into a series of courtroom dramas and forensic video reviews. They have replaced the joy of a goal with the anxiety of a technicality. The lights at SoFi Stadium have been dimmed, and the thousands of Belgian fans who traveled across the Atlantic are now making the long trek back to Brussels, wondering what might have been if Courtois' thigh had held or if Michael Oliver's whistle had blown. They are left with the quiet, devastating realization that in the modern game, the ball is only one of many things being played. As the tournament moves toward its climax in Texas, the shadow of Los Angeles will linger. We are heading toward a final that the broadcasters dreamed of, featuring the biggest names and the most storied jerseys. But for many, the luster has faded. We are no longer just watching athletes. We are watching an institution protect its interests. The grass is still green, the players are still fast, and the goals still count for one. But something fundamental has shifted in the way we perceive the result. The image of Sen Lamens watching that ball escape his grasp will be the one that haunts Belgium for a decade. It wasn't a thunderbolt, it wasn't a moment of magic. It was a simple fumble, a lapse in concentration from a child thrown into a man's war. It was the physical manifestation of a team reaching its breaking point. Spain didn't need to be better. They only needed to be there when the cracks formed. And as they celebrate their passage to the semifinals, they do so with the knowledge that the world is watching them with narrowed eyes. They are the beneficiaries of a system that favors the status quo, even if they didn't ask for the help. The road to the trophy is now clear, but it is littered with the wreckage of teams like Belgium who wonder if they ever truly had a chance. The whistle blows, the stadium empties, and the questions remain unanswered. A handball that wasn't a handball, a superstar who isn't a superstar, a tournament that isn't just a tournament. In the end, we are left staring at the empty pitch, searching for a truth that the governing body has no interest in revealing. Football is coming home, but the house feels haunted.